Okay, I don't know how, I hope this is going to be helpful. This is an Amphion Air Motor Governor. It is different than the one you have. This one only has a single regulator instead of the double regulator. But other than that, the principles of operation of this governor are identical to the one that you've got. The re-regulator was actually a device that they put in later on to make the adjustment to make the regulator work a little bit better, so that it could respond to very fast changes in the vacuum level, and it's referred to as a secondary regulator. But all of the internals of this device, the principles of operation are identical to the one that you've got. So we're going to take this thing apart one thing at a time. As far as the flap, as far as the leather goes on the back, this is actually a pretty stiff piece of leather. So I believe that the flap leather that you have will work well for this. This is pretty thick. The only thing is, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to want to put the fuzzy side to this side, and then the shiny side of the flap. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to sand the heck out of that and get all of that shininess and everything off of that, so that you have a good surface to glue to for where the cloth glues onto the back. Okay, so you're just going to want to rough that up real good so that you got a good surface for gluing, so you get a nice airtight seal on the back when you put the cloth on. Okay, as far as how this works, okay, you can see that this part, although the configuration of this valve and yours is different than this, the principle is exactly the same. And you can see that this is a spring-loaded valve, okay, and that as the governor, as the vacuum level increases, that'll open and that'll close that valve down, and that restricts the vacuum flow, okay, as the valve closes down. So obviously this armature has to be free-floating, okay, and when the bellow is closed all the way, and this has a thing on the back of it. It's really poor design here, because obviously this piece of felt wears out over time. But I'm sure that by the time the unit got to right here, okay, because that's where it's closed, so you can see how far closed the bellow is. Okay, and it can't go any further than that. I mean, that's as far as it can go. So I'm sure that the and if you look real carefully inside there, you can see that there's plenty of room between this piece right here and the top of this piece right here, so that nothing prevents this valve right here from closing 100%. Okay. Which of course would only happen if there was an extreme level of vacuum. There'd have to be an awfully extreme level of vacuum for this to close all the way. And I'm going to look inside. I'm going to look inside here in a minute. Here, I want to show you what's inside there, because I believe that inside of here there's a. I haven't taken this apart yet, but I believe that there's a piece of leather on the other side of this, so that the wooden piece, which is down inside of here, as you can see, I mean, you can see that this piece right here, okay, you can see that this piece right here, this does move back and forth, okay, so that piece does move back and forth. It's supposed to be free. Right? So if yours is locked in position, that's not good. Okay, it has to be free floating so that it can adjust It can adjust, and that's why they did it that way, so that it could adjust to the orifice that's in here. It could adjust regardless of whether or not the wind, depending on how the wind was blowing across the valve. All right, they wanted to make sure that it would close down and seat 100% when it got all the way down to there. So this piece has to be free moving. It has to be able to move back and forth. Okay? And of course this has to be able to move freely. While I'm here, I can actually see that there's a piece of leather, and I would recommend that you replace. Should have had a smaller screwdriver here. This just barely fits this screw head. I don't have my other driver handy. It barely fits. It really doesn't fit in here. I don't like the bugger screws. But come on, cooperate. All right. I don't know if this not gonna. This piece is nailed in, so I'm not going to be able to take it out. And sure enough, there's a piece of leather there. Okay. So this wooden valve right here, trying to get a good picture of this. Kind of hard to get there. This wooden valve seats against the leather. Okay? So that's how that works. Okay. On the underside, okay, on this side, you've got the, in yours, this was already broken apart, so I didn't do that for you. I did that for me. In yours, this is where you've got the valve. This is where you've got the valve block that you were showing me that has a diaphragm for the re-roll. And this is where the valve is that is activated when the unit goes into rewind. It opens up a hole back here in the back of the governor. Opens up a hole back here in the back of the governor, which allows atmosphere to come in. And that allows the valve to open and close. Of course, and this is what the only reason I mention that is because it only has to be. You can see right here that the distance. That this has to move, okay, the distance that this has to move to be fully open, of course, because it's going to run into this piece. It's going to run into this piece on here. Okay, I've got this right, yeah. It's going to run into that piece right there. So this valve is only going to move. This valve is only going to move that far. Right? So as long as the diaphragm is dished enough so that it's going to move the, whatever that is, not even a quarter of an inch. Okay, you just want to make sure that it's got enough dish in it so that it'll open up all the way. All right, and that takes care of that. As far as the slider. Okay, as far as the slider goes, the slider is supposed to be covered with tan pneumatic cloth, tan pneumatic leather. This leather is 12 to 14 thousandths of an inch thick, okay, and it gets glued on. It only gets glued on the end here and the end here. It does not get glued in the center, right? Because if you put glue on in the center, it's not going to be perfectly flat, no matter how well you glue it. I mean, some people say that they can glue it so that it'll be perfectly flat. I don't believe it, okay? In fact, you can see that somebody had put glue on this one. Somebody had put glue on this one previously. That's probably why the governor didn't work well, and it didn't regulate well. But when you glue it, you're only supposed to glue it on the end here, glue it on the end here, and on the end here. And